Hi, Odette. Nice to meet you. Thank you for being
Hi,
agreeing.
Spero.
Thank you for agreeing to chatting on our branded content day, which has been sponsored by Memor Inform and being part of the Branded Content Marketing Association in South Africa. We thought that you've had an industrious career in the industry, been CEO of a couple of big agencies and of the ACA, and so you've moved into the content space quite a lot recently. So just tell me about your move and tell me about the things that you're doing specifically in the branded content arena.
I've always believed that content is the future, and the experience and how content is delivered in terms of creating an experience for people would be the future of how brands communicate. And I've always been in content production in one way or the other, either in front or behind the camera, as a side hustle. I've made my side hustle a full-time hustle. And it's really to demonstrate that what I've always been saying is indeed the fact. The COVID pandemic has definitely shown us that this is the future of communicating with audiences from a broadcasting point of view, and it is definitely a way of communicating and building resonance with consumers from a brand point of view. It's been an amazing journey this year, but it's been one that really has tested the resolve in terms of creating content that is not only enjoyable, but that also rings the cash register.
So, I mean, a lot of brands, specifically during the COVID period, want to jump onto the social media platforms, which is short format. I mean, how
Mm.
do you advise brands that you work with to talk about or to get involved in branded content more and for them to buy into that philosophy?
I think that if brands are not on social media already, it's problematic. So to jump onto social media now is a big problem. They're a little bit behind the curve. But the growth of platforms like TikTok has shown us that long format isn't necessarily the way. So some people say that, if you have long format, you have a longer time to explain things and to showcase your brands. But TikTok has shown us that something as short as 15 seconds can actually go viral in a matter of minutes. I think what is necessary is to do social listening and to jump onto the platforms that are relevant for your brand. So it doesn't necessarily have to be your branded content. It can be something that's really, really viral and interesting and entertaining and connecting your brand to something like that. Just yesterday, I was explaining that there's a particular brand that wanted to do something to showcase CSI projects. And I was talking about the fact that the brand didn't have enough CSI projects to go a long way. But there's nothing stopping the brand from identifying really cool CSI initiatives that are out there and say, we love that. So instead of having an initiative for themselves for every day of the week, they could literally every day of the week find really cool champions in the country or really cool charities in the country and endorse them. And
I,
that's a very clever way of using content.
of leveraging it. And I'm
Yeah.
going to go back a little. You briefly mentioned TikTok and the subject matter we're chatting about is creativity in branded content and leveraging creativity. And the beauty about TikTok is that there's so much creativity that comes across in a concept in that short space of time, and that's what really gets the followers. And I think that's what brands need to really get into their space. That little bit of creativity that those users generate is creating so much eyeballs. Okay?
I think that brands are still stuck in trying to control the narrative. And platforms like TikTok have shown that you need to jump onto creative content, not necessarily create always the creative content. If you are backing content with your brand, you don't always need to be the creator of that content. TikTok has shown us that foolish things can be hugely humorous and create such an insane global sharing of content, especially during lockdown when people were at home. I remember watching TikTok videos and laughing about how people were just trying to keep busy during lockdown, stage 5 lockdown. If brands would only realize that that is the narrative of the people. So when the consumers say something, it's really authentic. It's generally more creative than a whole lot of people sitting in a boardroom trying to create a creative concept. It's organic, it's relevant, and it resonates. So in the business of content, there's always, I feel there's a time to create, and then there's a time to create the connection. You don't always have to be the creator of the content in order to create the connection.
And do you think influencers and content are starting to merge? Because obviously one doesn't live without the other, but you used to have a large infrastructure to be able to create content. Now you don't. It's really about an idea. But do you think that those two disciplines are merging?
Absolutely, those two disciplines are merging. But you talk about influencers. Influencers can be kids. You find that with the growth of social media and how quickly things live online. So you must know that there's no longevity. So the demand for creative content has never been more relevant or more in demand. Creative content hasn't been more in demand than it is right now. And you're finding that kids, toddlers, I interviewed a young toddler, I kid you not, she's 4 years old, and she's creating the most insane social content. As a 4-year-old, she's a natural. Brands have yet to identify this toddler as an influencer with over 200 followers, and I'm not going to say who she is at this point. Now, for me, there is an opportunity for brands who are making chocolates and sweets, the confectionery stuff, kids' clothing. There is such an insane opportunity to partner with somebody like that who makes these very quick videos. Yes, she's a toddler. Yes, they aren't done professionally, so they aren't great cuts and angles and lighting, but it's so organic and so spontaneous that adults are sharing this content. And who are the decision makers when it comes to kids' cereal, kids' clothing, that kind of thing? It's the adults, right? It's the adults. So sometimes the adults just miss the mark in the boardroom and fail to see that influencers can be kids. Today you can connect everybody on the continent who has a smartphone using the right kind of content. Everybody multi-screens, but nobody's without their smartphone. Ever.
Absolutely. I'm going to move off the subject of short format, and I know that you've been involved quite extensively in creating branded content for a television platform. And with people staying at home and with more people watching free-to-air content, it's an unbelievable opportunity for brands to play in that space, considering that the broadcasters can't spend as much money as brands can to create that unbelievable content. I know you've been playing in that space. Just can you tell me what you've been up to in that particular arena?
So everybody wants to be on TV, right? Everybody wants to be on TV, but it's so expensive doing it the traditional way. And brands have cut back because realistically, the economy globally is in a slump. So what we found is that even though you have a growth in pay TV channels, right, and streaming platforms, people still watch TV. They still watch series. They still watch movies. And gone are the days of merely putting a product in a scene and making that sufficient for a brand to create awareness. Integrated branded entertainment is the way of the future. And that means taking the brand narrative and weaving it into the storyline of whatever it is that you're showing. So you give a brand an opportunity to actually communicate their brand ethos subliminally to consumers by making sure that the complete narrative of the brand is ingrained in the narrative of the scripted content. Now, what exactly is all of that? It means that if you're talking about, let's say, a tracking company with an eye in the sky, keeping an eye on vehicles, right? You don't need to say, buy this tracking device, have this tracking device in your car. You can literally show that the tracking device is the eye in the sky, overlooking something that's happening in the story. So a big brother kind of situation. And you can communicate that this big brother is the name of that brand. And create a character out of the brand name and weave that character into the narrative of the story. If it is a series or if it is a film, for example. That way, people become synonymous with the brand name, and what the brand represents and what the brand does. You have their undivided attention whilst they're being entertained. And to do that, believe it or not, even for a 24-minute, 13-week episode, season of something, will cost you cheaper than it will to make an ad, let alone to flight it. And yes, it will be on TV, So,
and the value they get in return for being in a consumer space for 13 weeks for 26 minutes a week is just phenomenal.
It's insane. And then you start bringing integration. So you say, right, you take those segments that you filmed. So you are filming anyway. So you film for multi-format, right? And you slice and dice pockets of content for social media. So you create a socially relevant narrative on social media platforms and place the content there. And if you're even more clever, you'll put little click-throughs on it that'll take you to the brand's website. So now you start tracking the effectiveness of the whole project, right? And you can start generating footprint to the brand's website or online platforms, and you can start seeing a return on investment that is a lot more than just product placement to create an awareness. You can actually start generating real sales and see where the money's gone. That's the role of content. The problem is that a lot of marketers don't understand that because they don't get that my brand is not being communicated, almost shouted at the consumer all the time. Subliminal marketing through branded content is something that marketers still need to get used to. And understanding that weaving the narrative of the brand isn't a hard sell of the brand in every second of every minute of every episode.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some brands that are not even integrating their messaging into the content. They're creating content for consumers just to come and watch. So One of the questions I wanted to ask, I know that often comes up with us and our clients is the broadcaster, because the broadcaster still has their traditional hat on and looks at content or long form content as brands, as AFPs, and they want to sell you the airtime. So how are you finding broadcasters are adapting to this new content?
Just like everybody else, broadcasters are hungry. And gone are the days of big TV ad spend. So broadcasters are hungry for business. Broadcasters are hungry to bring clients or marketers and brands back into the fold. And the one thing that everybody realized during this pandemic is that TV is not dead. What broadcasters are now extra hungry for is good content. So even if you look at the streaming platforms, you see amazing shows, South African homegrown productions that are on those platforms, right? Those can't be done without some kind of branded funding. It just can't happen. And a broadcaster or a media owner, be it a streaming platform or a traditional broadcaster, coming to the table. So now what you find is you have the broadcaster coming to the table as part of the AFP funding mechanism. You have the brands coming to the table, and you have the production company or the content creators sitting around the table. There is a piece of the pie for everybody who is forward-thinking and unselfish. Everybody can get mileage. And the minute you do one or two successful projects like this, other brands start sitting up and saying, oh my goodness, we need to be doing that. And other broadcasters saying, well, how are they doing it? They're getting all the eyeballs, And this is what's happening. The traditional way of thinking is dying on every front. Even with the broadcasters. Yes, broadcasters want to sell you the airtime, but yes, broadcasters also need the content.
And they can't spend the amount of money that brands can put towards building really good content.
Yes.
Because they've got to split their funds across a number of different channels. Well, Odette, I just want to say that the discussion today is part of a broader discussion that's happening around the world about branded content for Branded Content Day. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much for your time. A special thanks to Nemarin Film, who are the sponsors of the show. And again, the BCMA, which is the Branded Content Marketing Association, which we're part of. And we'll definitely get you onto our committee for the course of next year. You've got
I'm
so
looking
much
forward.
knowledge in that space.
I look forward to it. I think there's nothing more powerful than being in a room full of content producers and contributing to something that is not just a passion point for me, but that is my business now. And contributing something that will generate a decent amount of jobs and revenue for the economy that has been so hard hit on the continent. I look forward to it.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time and for your insights. Much appreciated. Cheers,
Thank
Odette.
you, Spero. All the
Bye.
best.